Ladies and gentlemen, Sabotage from DPS HQ. Just wanted to give you a run through on a new little toy that we're playing with, which is the Necromancer minion build. We've just started up a nightmare dungeon. I'm going to go in there to show you a little bit of gameplay to give you an idea of how strong these things can actually be in Season 3. So a couple of mechanics that have brought the minions' power levels up pretty high. And I have no doubt that as we power on towards level 100, that we will be able to start doing the nightmare dungeons at that level, tier 100 nightmare dungeons. And I have no doubt that this will probably end up taking on a lot of the uber bosses as well. So you'll see I'm using Blight to start off the battle. And Blight is just there to basically send my minions out to the fight. I'm not really doing much else. They're taking on everything themselves. So the main problem that you're going to find as you start to get into higher level nightmare dungeons when it comes to these minions is you're going to notice that the minions survive and it's you who's going to need all the help you can get. So I found a way to mitigate that. You can see here, look, throw the Blight in, minions start to go in, they go in for the battle. I'm just corpse tendriling everything, bringing it all together. And our golem, who we haven't maxed out the board on him yet, we are actually nowhere near maxing out the board on him yet, is doing nice little one-shots. So we're basing this on a shadow build. And if we send our golem out, you'll see him run and boom! One hit. One shot and he's taking things out. So they are strong. They are definitely playable. We'll throw a couple of corpse explosions into the mix as we're running around. This is not for those who like to play an aggressive fast build, because you will have to slow down. You will have to slow down and let your minions do the work. That's what they're here for. But every time you get Army of the Dead open, run them out. And every time you get your golem on cooldown, get him to run around and do his thing. So definitely a playable build. You can see these are level 99 minions that we're versing currently. And they're taking them out very, very easily. We're only a level 81. So this is almost 20 levels above us. We'll do a little bit more here, just to show you the gameplay. The loop is very, very simple. All you're doing is tendriling to help your minions out, letting them all run in. You can see there, one little explosion almost took me out. Didn't touch the minions. Take a look at their health too while we're playing this. Take a look at the minions' health, the little blue bars that you see. And you are going to notice that they don't really move. The minion health bars stay through the poison, through the explosions, through everything. So that's the gameplay. That's where we're at the moment. We're going to finalize this build and actually bring it online as a level 100 build, because I think that we might be able to do a lot more and people can finally start to have some fun with minions. A lot of this is going to center around one particular board, which is your cult leader, and that is that you get increased damage for every 20% of attack speed that the minions have. So what we're going to be doing then is building a lot of health onto these minions, because every time we use Army of the Dead, and through a couple of key aspects and through a couple of skills, our minions get a substantial amount of attack speed. So let's start with the Seneschal construct, just to get him out of the way, because it's very simple, very easy. We do Flash of Adrenaline with Tactical and Duration, which is normal. We also use Initiative now, so that the Seneschal will actually teleport to us and hit us with the Flash of Adrenaline. That just gives us a bit of extra attack power. When it gives us the attack power, that also palms down to our minions. Next, we're using Tempest, and we're using this for two things. One, arcing to hit a whole bunch of people, which is then going to use Breaking to make them vulnerable. Once this gets up to level 10, you can see that we're not level 10 on any of these as yet, but once this gets to level 10, it's a 100% vulnerable chance. So you will make enemies vulnerable across the board. And then we're using Dusk Support to help out with some extra shadow damage to proc Shadow Blight. And that's our Seneschal construct in a nutshell. Going across to the gear. This is nowhere near perfect. And when I say nowhere near, I mean nowhere near. We're sort of res capping a little bit. We're missing a couple of reses on Lightning and Shadow. Nowhere near cap, nowhere near. But as we go through, you'll see exactly what I mean. So, on our helmet, we got the 2 extra mages. We've got maximum life we want, total armor we want. All stats is good. Fire resistance is okay. we do need to res cap for fire, so this is something that's really, really good. On our armor, maximum minion life, dexterity I don't really need, the all stats I don't really need. I prefer this to have a whole bunch of DR, but I just don't have it as yet. Skeletal warriors, which is also in the codex, is what I'm running on the armor. But I've got a poison resistance on there for now, just to help res cap the poison, but we want to find something with all DR and maximum minion life here. So you do want maximum minion life, that's number one. On your gloves, we want lucky hit chance. We definitely want to get some lucky hit if you're going to run Ring of Mendeln. I'm not running the Mendeln ring right now, but my lucky hit is nowhere near high enough, and I'm using a two-hander. If you do go down the one-hander route, you can swap out the other ring for a Mendeln ring for the minions to hit even harder. But on here and on the gloves, you basically need to be looking for critical strike chance, and then you want ranks to blight, and then you will want some intelligence because that will work with our wither node, and lucky hit chance. I run Army of the Dead on here, and then basically what that does is give my minions 100% attack speed, which is 5 times 20. Again, if we go back to the cult leaderboard, for every 20% of attack speed, 15% increased damage. So while you're running Army of the Dead, you have 5 times 20, which means 5 times 15 for the damage that your minions are going to do. It's insane. We are going to play around with a couple of things to try and make our Army of the Dead come back a lot quicker, but we'll talk about that in the next video once we've maxed this out at level 100. Next, we are using our pants. Now, we don't really need any resource, we don't really need anything like that because we want our minions to go out there and do the damage. This is why I'm not building up Blight hugely, because I don't want me to be doing the damage. I want my minions going out there doing the damage. I'm just building up the shadow damage so that the shadow blight procs, so when the shadow blight procs and we get a huge boost in attack, that boost then goes down to our minions as well. But on your pants, you want intelligence for the wither node, maximum minion life, total armor, and some form of damage reduction. And this is where I'm using juggernauts. This is basically what armor caps us. You can see we're at 17k, well above the armor cap where we need to be, but that caps us on our armor. On our boots, these are pretty damn good. I would probably swap the essence cost reduction for another resist, but all stats, movement speed, and then 2 resists is what you're looking for here. And I've got Blight's defiled area when spawn pulls in enemies. So when we blight and it hits an enemy and it spawns the pool of blight, it pulls the enemies in together. It helps our minions get to them all in one little group. Corpse Tendrils helps along with that as well. This is the big one where you can play them 2 separate ways. You can go for a wand for lucky hit and then a shield for the defenses. If you go down that route, I would probably go down Lidless Wall and move away from Army of the Dead, but then your minions aren't going to get that massive boost. I like to play it with a two-hander, and the reason why is we can play Blighted on here. So Blighted, the two-hander doubles it. You deal 240% multiplicative. That's 240 multiplicative damage. After the Shadow Blight key passive damages enemies 10 times. Now we have our Seneschal doing that. We also have our minions and our Shadow Mages doing that. We have Blight doing that. We've got a lot of stuff proccing Shadow. And what I've got here is Intelligence. You really want that. Critical Strike, you really want that. Damage over time is really good. Ultimate skill damage isn't the best, but I had to reroll for the Intelligence. So that ultimate skill damage, I don't know what I'd put out for that. Probably Shadow damage. Maybe even something along the lines of vulnerable damage or something along those lines. Even core damage for the Blight to sort of hit a little bit harder, but that's basically where you want to be with your two-hander. You do want to run Ring of Sacrilegious, obviously. This is nowhere near a max roll. I could go onto my other Necro and grab the max roll of it, but I haven't found the need for it as yet. You get a bit of lucky hit, you get maximum life on this, you get maximum essence, which you don't really need. You're not looking for that. The corpse skills you do want, but then these bottom ones, this is exactly what you want. You want your corpse explosions going off, you want to raise a skeleton as quickly as possible, and you want your corpse tendrils going off all the time so that they can group enemies together. But the raising skeletons is the big one, because as they die, it raises new ones. If they don't die, it raises the skeletal mage, which then heals all of your minions, every single one of them, which is really, really good. On my next ring, I'm running the reanimation, which means your minions gain increased damage while alive. I've got this max rolled, so while they're alive, and you can see that they're surviving everything at the moment, their damage basically goes up 40% multiplicative, and it stays there until they die. Minion dies, re-raises, after 10 seconds, he's hitting just as hard. Critical strike damage is good. Damage to distance is not the best thing to be using. I'd use damage to close if you can over here, but there's not really much else I can do. Damage to injured is not good either. Maximum minion life is very good. I would probably go along the lines of maximum life for you. As you can see, our life is pretty low. And then I would go for something like critical strike damage, especially if you're using Mendeln. If you're going to put a Mendeln ring, critical strike damage is going to be a big one for you. And now, The key player in this, and I know I hate using Ubers, I hate telling people to use Ubers, so I'm going to give you the option of the non-Uber first, which is ranks to gloom, minion attack speed, and then a heap of movement speed for you so you can get out of the way. And then each time you're summoning minions damage an enemy, they gain attack speed up to 63%. That's 3 times the 20. That's 45% multiplicative damage based on the cult leader board if you use a choke or an amulet like this one. This works phenomenally well, but you will be squishy. So you have to stay out of the way, let your minions do the work. Now, to get in the argument a little bit more, to get in the fight a little bit more, I have a Melted Heart. I've had it since it was the first drop that ever happened for me. We've had a second one drop since, but I play the Melted Heart. The all stats works really well, especially for the Wither node. The movement speed is really good. The damage while healthy is damage for you and your minions while they're healthy. You're always healthy, your minions are always healthy. It's a huge boost in damage. The maximum resource doesn't mean so much, but when you take damage, 75% of it is drained as resource instead. And because you're not really using that much of your resource, you're using just Blight occasionally to be able to pull enemies in together and basically start the fight off by shooting and showing your minions where people are. That's the only reason you're really using your Blight. So it works out really well to make you a lot more tanky. And when you're a lot more tanky, you'll survive a lot more, which will allow you to survive higher nightmare dungeons. You've seen the minions don't die. And we haven't even leveled everything to max yet. Nowhere near, as a matter of fact. We're only 2 or 3 boards in. And you'll see that as we go along the Paragon board. But if you don't have Melted Heart, like I said, you can easily use this. This is going to give your minions something that gives the Frenzied Dead, which gives your minions a huge multiplicative damage, and it gives them attack speed as well. Plus, the amulet itself has attack speed, and we've got ranks to gloom for the shadow damage to be able to spike the shadow damage up too. That's your gear. Let's move on to our Book of the Dead. We're using Skeletal Warriors for the Reapers. Obviously, we want to carve off corpses as much as we can for our Corpse Explosion and for our Corpse Tendrils, and to be able to raise more minions should we need to. We're using Shadow Mages because we're doing a Shadow backup to the build. And Shadow seems to be one of the strongest versions of this. I have tried Blood, and I started with the Blood Surge at the beginning, thinking that Death Speaker's Pendant would be a really good way to go. It just doesn't do the same amount of damage. Shadow is a lot better, and Shadow will actually spike your damage, which I'll show you when we go back into the dungeon later, where your damage spikes up to. And the more your damage spikes, the 30% that passes onto the minions spikes just as big, which means you're hitting a lot harder, and it also means that your backup with Corpse Explosions is hitting a lot harder to back your minions up. And then the last one, we're using the Blood Golem. The reason we're using that is Bone doesn't really give us too much in regards to what it does. We're not playing Thorns. We don't need any extra corpses. With the Iron Golem, you can get things like the Vulnerable, but we're using Breaking to make Vulnerable. Every 4th attack using the Shockwave doesn't really do much. I mean, it does crit, but it's not going to be really great to use constantly. The Blood Golem, on the other hand, while healthy, gains more damage reduction, which means he survives more, and gains 50% multiplicative damage. This is after all the other damages and your Paragon board and everything goes in, 50% multiplicative damage on top, which makes your Blood Golem basically immortal. He's stronger than you. He will go in and fight in battles that you cannot even fathom. So that's why we go the Blood Golem. So that's our Book of the Dead. And lastly, we go over to our Paragon board. Now you can see 1, 2, 3. That's all I'm at the moment, guys. Level 81. So we haven't even finished this up. We will be going out to 2 more boards, probably out this way, because it's a really short jump to get out, in which we're going to play the Wither board. And we're going to be playing the Wither board because of this node here. And you can see that current bonus is huge, so you get your bonus damage every time, and it's increased. So there's an 18% increased chance of this bonus happening. You do 102% bonus damage. And then we're going to throw something in here. We're going to grab a couple of these shadow damage nodes on the way. Not every single one of them. Probably not that one down there, but we will be grabbing damage reduction for us. Bit of shadow resistance, which will help us res cap. We'll be grabbing that for more shadow damage. We'll be grabbing this for damage to shadow damage over time affected enemies, which is just a tongue twister. And then we'll come in here and we'll also grab Gloom for more shadow resistance, which is going to help us res cap and more shadow damage. And then we're going to throw something in there, which will probably be the Mage glyph, because like I said, we're trying to build this around to make our minions the focus. We don't want to put in stuff like having to get Flesh Eater and build this into a full shadow build and have it as a shadow build with minions. We want this to be a minions build with shadow backing it up. So that's why we're going to go into the Wither board there. Then once we finish the wither board, we will be sneaking over here because again, you can see this is really, really close, and I'm not close with anything else around here. But this is really, really close, so we're going to pop out here, and here we're going to be using Flesh Eater. So Flesh Eater, because we're consuming corpses constantly, you get a 40% increased damage for 5 seconds. This then passes on to your minions. But what this also has, which is really, really good, is some poison resistances, as you can see there, and resistance to all elements for us. So we're going to try and grab some of that as well as the attack speed, which then passes down to our minions for more attack speed, which means more damage for the minions. So we're going to go the Flesh Eater board out that way, and it's going to be a 5 board, basically, just a 5 board. What we're going to do from there is we're going to put Mage in, which is going to give skeletal mages a lot more damage, but it also gives our minions a huge resistance buff by 35%. And then for the last one, we are probably going to go into, if I can find it over here, Warrior, which is going to be down near the end, that one, which is going to give our skeletal warriors a whole bunch of extra damage, but it also gives our minions more armor. Now, when we get more armor, more resistances, and we do all this, we're basically going to have our minions probably twice, 3, 4 times stronger than we are. But that's where we're going to go with that board, and that's how we're going to run the Paragon board. Now, when we go back in, this is the one thing I want to show you when we go through and we just run into a couple of enemies. I want to get the minions out there to show you the run, but then I will be pausing just so you can see our damage. So we're at 19,000 at the moment. We throw our minions out there, and you can see as they start to attack, we've jumped up to 24, and it goes much, much higher than that. So I'm just going to bring everything in, run out of the way of this fire, and you can see our damage is at 71,000 now. So our damage does spike, and that's from the Shadow Blight, 240% multiplicative. But you can see here, our minions just took out an entire room with nothing. You can see every time that there's a corpse on the ground, corpse tendrils goes off. You can see my mage coming out there to assist the minions. We throw a bit of blight in there. We do a bit of shadow damage to help them out, but they don't really need it. They really don't. And then we just basically do the same thing over and over again. Now, if you watch me, I'm not really doing many explosions. I'm letting my minions do a lot of the work because I want this build to be a minion build, like I said. Minions with me backing them up, not so much me with some minions backing me up. So we throw the blight in, you can see everything gets pulled in when we throw the blight in. Sort of pulls and grasps all the enemies together. Our minions are being healed by the skeletal priest that's being pulled out every 1.8 seconds. And they are just absolutely annihilating every single thing that you can see on this screen. We corpse tendril, we bring everything in, send the golem out, he just kills everything in one hit. This is a very, very viable build, especially seeing that we are this high up in level and our minions are running against 99s without a problem. Bit of blight, usual again, bit of blight down there. I'm going to run out of the way now because someone just spawned in on top of me. Send the golem in, and look at those health bars, guys. Insane, isn't it? Golem's still healthy, minions are still healthy, everybody's healthy. If I was walking into all of that, I'd probably be dead by now. There you go. One pop and I'm already at half my life. So they work. And they work really, really well. So minions, completely viable build. One thing I did forget to mention as we're going through gear, and the reason that we're going for a scythe, is you'll notice that if I do lose some health, I'm going to leave my health down, that little bit that it's fallen now. When we do lose health, we send our golem in and our minions start killing things. You can see my health just jumps straight back up. It's almost like having Undying from Season 2. But it's not. What's happening here is that on my site, we have 343 life on kill as the main affix that comes with the site. So every time something dies, we heal, which is really, really good. So there we go, guys. That's a minion build. This is what it looks like. This is how our minions are. I'm just standing here letting them do their business. They're literally running through and doing everything themselves. A couple of corpse explosions that are happening from Sacrilegious, helping them out, sort of giving them a little bit of shadow damage. I haven't built up light. I haven't really built up the shadow damages yet. We don't even have the Wither Node as yet. Can you imagine how strong this is going to be when the Wither Node comes online? Absolutely amazing. So stay tuned. We will be running this build for a couple more days, hopefully not more than a couple more days, just to be able to bring it up to level 100 so that we can fill out the Paragon board in full. And then once we fill out the Paragon board, we will be doing a few tweaks. We're going to do a couple of changes. We're going to get some better gear, hopefully, which is going to make sure that all our gear has actually got the right affixes on it and it's got everything that we need on it, because with good gear comes good dungeon running. And if we're running at level 99 mobs surrounding us while we're level 81, I think that we're going to have a really, really good chance to be able to run Nightmare 100s with minions. I think we may even be able to take on Lilith. Guys, stay tuned. Thank you very much. If you do like this, I do ask one thing. Please do like the video and subscribe to the channel, because it helps us out a lot. The more you guys like and the more you guys subscribe, the more our videos are going to show. The more our videos show, it means the more we're going to get back from YouTube for what we do here. And it also means that we can just start making more videos and we can take more requests from everyone out there in the internet world. But thank you very much for following us. Thank you very much for coming on board. My name's Sabotage. This has been DPS HQ, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.